Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com, as well as on Amazon. I have a return guest. I'm happy to have Jessie Lake back on the podcast. She was last on March 9th of 2025. She is season 5, episode 241, where she talked about how her twins were absconded with by the head of DSS in Missouri. And I welcome you back, Jesse. We're going
Thank
to
you.
play a tape, and this is going to tell it all.
Indeed. Yes. Thank you so much for having me back, Marianne. Um, so, yes, what I'm about to share with you is the audio recording that I was able to get. It's between myself and the business lab manager of the laboratory that was, well, their logo was printed on the results that were forged slash altered, forged, that they used to take away my 1 month old infants. Why did they take, why would someone do that? The motive is clear. The director wanted to adopt my oldest set of twin girls. She had been fostering them for the past 4 years leading up to this crime.
Mhm.
And I think she saw that things were looking a little bit too good in my world. And she got nervous once I had these healthy baby girls, brand new babies. Everything was looking great. And so she just, um, I have to protect myself in kind of what I say. I'm going to say allegedly, um,
Mhm.
because I have to protect myself. But, in my head, in my heart, I feel as though, you know, there was motive there. Um, and she didn't want anything to stand in the way of
Mhm.
her being able to adopt my oldest daughters. And so I believe that they pulled a rabbit out of a hat. And this is the audio recording between myself and the business lab manager, and we are discussing the results. Now, keep in mind, this is like 4 years late, 3 years later, after the babies had been removed, after I was coerced and threatened into signing over my parental rights
Mhm.
to the older girls, um, because of these drug test results. So, they came in, snatched my newborns based off forged results, and then held them in foster care for 5 months and then said, all right, now, here's your trial day. No trial was given. We were given an ultimatum, and that was to either sign over our parental rights voluntarily to the older set of twins in exchange for a guardianship on the infants, which could one day be terminated. Technically, I mean legally, that's the way that was explained to me. That's the way it should have gone. And the second option was to, if I fought it and I risked the outcome, a losing outcome, if I did not win, they would put all four girls up for adoption. So, and then they said you have 1 hour to decide, to make
Mhm.
things even worse. I mean, so under absolute coercion, threat, duress, pressure, just pure terror, I chose to surrender my parental rights to the older girls to save the babies. I could not bear losing all four.
Mhm.
So, moving forward in that, when I petitioned to terminate the guardianship, one of the first motions filed on the guardian's behalf was for me to undergo a 15 panel hair test. So in that process of me scheduling the 15 panel hair test, I got this gentleman on the phone, told him who I was and that I had had, a poor experience in the past. And I shared with him, your logo is on these results that I know are not correct. They're wrong. They're forged. And he's like, why don't you bring those with you when you come to your hair test? And so I did. And when I followed up with him, this is the conversation we had.
Okay.
Amphetamine positive. Category of amphetamines is positive, but only methamphetamines is positive.
I saw
The
that.
reason that
Fast forward.
that was a pretty
Telling you, our lawyers.
I looked, on purpose, basically.
Yes,
So,
and again, this is what they use to take our children away.
What they're looking at is amphetamine and methamphetamine.
And then what about...
Methamphetamine shows positive, amphetamine shows negative, meaning it's environmental, meaning you don't know how it got there. Something happened, but it wasn't on purpose.
What about the milliliters metric?
That's just that's a measurement. Let's see here, picogram.
You don't measure hair in milliliters?
Wait a minute, I didn't even notice that. Methamphetamine, nanogram per milliliter. Yeah, so that's
a huge deal.
Lawyers look at that and say that's...
I'm telling you, our lawyers rolled on us. They did not fight for us. They took a deal with that director's lawyer. They were aware. I believe that they saw it.
Sorry, I was at work that day.
He's a pretty crappy lawyer because, what they...
And you know what? He killed himself.
And it could everything.
He committed suicide.
I wasn't even looking at that. I was looking at the positive, because the thing is on your chest, it's environmental. And again, that means that you don't know what happened. You didn't do it on purpose. That's why they call it environmental accidental exposure.
And that, again, has got to be a lot of exposure. And what are the odds of two people? I mean, I'm not even going to ask questions that I already know the answer to, because I know that this was fraudulent. But yeah, I mean, would Test Smartly Laboratories not take issue with the fact that they removed 2 1-month-old babies with your logo on their results stating milliliters as a unit of metric? I mean,
So I'll fast forward it just a little bit, to get a little more confirmation.
And then we go by what's on that lab report. I'm just kind of shocked that there was never any follow-up on this prior to anything happening. But on that,
it was intentional. That's why someone did not. They messed up and didn't change over those units of measurement. And I think, I don't know. I mean, the whole thing. Anyway, I'm still to this day now fighting to get my daughters back, and they're now 3 years old, and it's like,
now they're 4.
I mean, I need anything and anyone that can help and advocate on my behalf, because obviously, like I said, the lawyer that was the paid lawyer in this, he killed himself just months after this happened. He committed suicide, and the other one was appointed by the state, and he just went with whatever. I mean, I think he was just so excited to be working next to an attorney as prestigious as the opposing party's attorney. I think that they were just all, it was unfair. We had no fight.
And did you go to?
Would be
What we are in this situation is we have, not to get too technical with it, we had a contract.
This is interesting.
And so we would handle all the billing services and everything. We had this third-party system. Then we got rid of that third-party system and sent that to Bing a couple of years ago because it wasn't good quality. But
what's Boom?
We did not intentionally use methamphetamine in that lab report state. That's the purpose of drug testing, and that's what this shows right here. You didn't do it on purpose. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, but I still I will argue that even fuller, to the further extent of they were altered. I mean, how can that show up as milliliters? Wouldn't you say someone would have had to physically go in and change that?
That's a good point, because I didn't notice that until you just said it. That is possible, because here's the thing, is that use a Test Smartly report, but you're right, somebody would have went in there and just done something, because once you see, and because I've been in court, and on the other side of it, we pointed that out, because we see like these forged results, like I just look at the positive, but I don't have to get right to that. I wanted to get to the heart of it. But you're right, that's where a lawyer would have argued and said, look, this is clearly a typo here. And then what I see as the problem is amphetamine category is not positive. Amphetamines wasn't positive. Amphetamines was negative. Meth was positive.
And in order to get a positive from meth, you would have to...
Maybe somebody did go through an alter, because I see a photocopy here, and while it looks like it's legitimate, myself, if we were to take, we look at it again and say, yeah, I mean, that's... Because we don't have access to that old system anymore, but at the end of the day, the milliliter, nanogram per milliliter is...
That's impossible. Yeah, I mean, that's a urine test.
You're right. That alone would tell you that, look, something's not right here. We need to go back and figure out what's going on. And then use a lab report, show something was wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really frustrating. So you're right. Somebody would have gone through, or if the system made, I would doubt that the system would make that egregious of an error. Now look at it. Screen cutoff 250. The screen cutoff is 300. So that's also inaccurate. So
they changed the cutoff level.
Yeah, go ahead and look at this again here, because like I said, when
I see it.
this, I just looked at that.
250.
250 screen cutoff. That's not the number for the cutoff.
It's 300.
Wrong.
So
They got this. So somebody did something here. They took one of our results. They had good software, but here's also the thing. So you see another thing you're going to look at on methamphetamine. A screen is not lower than a cutoff. A screen is higher than a cutoff.
Fired up.
Battery low.
Oh gosh.
This is like, okay, here's what my thing is that they try to screw with it because they're trying to say that yes, you ingested, but the thing I look at is like, no, you didn't. It's accidental. Meaning it doesn't matter what the level is.
that was never mentioned. We had an expert testimony. A gentleman who was the custodian of records of Quest Diagnostics that was considered an expert witness and gave an expert testimony. And it was never even brought to the court's attention that it could have been environmental, not ever at all. We were deemed to be drug users and unfit for children, and they're still gone. I mean, this has been a nightmare. So
Okay. So I think it died. I'm plugging it in, but you get the idea.
Right. He said it all.
Oh, now I can't hear you. Oh, there, my volume was just down. What was that?
He said it all.
Yeah. I mean,
Bluetooth pairing.
not only did they,
Bluetooth
change the units of measurement, but I mean, the cutoff levels were altered. And I mean, it says it all right there. And it's like, well, now, what do you do? What do you do with this information? At the time when I was able to, get this proof, of course, I was in the early stages of litigating to terminate the guardianship that I was coerced into signing my infants over, into 3 years prior. And of course I had an attorney, the one that has managed to extort me out of, I think I've been billed for services somewhere around $40,000 in just over a year's time, only to get the judge denied my petition to terminate guardianship, and I got a visitation order. I mean, that, if you can really just like sit back for a second and think about what I have been through, and I'm not trying to just be like, poor me, but really, I mean, I don't ever claim to be a saint. I am not a perfect person, and I have made mistakes in my life, but I don't know how one mother could be put through so much. Oh my goodness, from,
Oh, you have been put through a lot.
oh my gosh. So, yeah, I mean, even with this paid attorney, I did not get any further than, I probably would have done better by myself with no attorney, really. But when I got this proof, of course, I, was quick to call my attorney and say, guess what? Guess what? I've got this proof. I've got, you're never going to believe this. And he acted about as excited as, I mean, he was just like, I don't even think he answered my call for like a couple of days, even, or returned my call to find out what the news was. And then when I was able to share it with him, he just kind of was like, well, that's great. But he just wouldn't really, acknowledge it really. And he did not submit it into my case as evidence when it came time for trial. I mean, and I specifically, told him, absolutely, I want it to be used at trial. And he felt, for what, I don't know why, he has never given me a solid explanation as to why he did not feel that it was important to submit that, so, to let the judge be aware that the whole reason why these girls were ever placed into this guardianship was based off of forged drug test results. Not just to get the babies into a guardianship, but to get me to surrender my rights to the other two. Also, so 4 little girls wrongfully stripped of, their whole heritage, their mother, their father, their sibling. I mean, just because, we just didn't have a leg to stand on. That is the way it works. That's the way that system works. It's their word against yours.
Well,
But in my case, I'm like, no, I will never stop
your
fighting
attorney
this.
could have
So
subpoenaed him.
huh?
Your attorney could have subpoenaed him.
Oh, and at one point he called me on a Saturday, one afternoon, and said, Jessie, I just spoke with Mr. So-and-so, the business lab manager. I would like to issue a subpoena to him. He said, to have him, subpoenaed to trial, as I think that he would be very beneficial to your case. And he's willing. I spoke with the business lab manager of the lab, and he was willing, with or without a subpoena, to testify on my behalf. But of course, the attorney said, well, but I can't do that until you've got to pay this $200.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, no big deal. Monday morning came, I paid the $200. No subpoena was issued. And, he had this way of like kind of gaslighting me and making me feel very, like every time I would call my attorney, it's like, okay, time's ticking, this is costing you. So I always had to speak really fast and try to get out anything that I could in a short amount of time, because it was costing. And he still, I don't think, could grasp and, have a good grasp of what the hell was going on, like collectively in my case. I mean, there was just never enough time to give him enough information, and he just didn't care, to be quite honest. Now, I know this. Not only was he not for me, but he was against me. I mean, there's things that have come around by now that it's just sickening. It's hurtful and sickening, to think that you put your trust and money into someone, you expect to represent you and get back what's yours, what's rightfully yours. And you find out that, they too are just part of this like horrible game, horrible nightmare. But anyhow, I don't know. I mean,
so
at this point, so sorry, go ahead.
And you found out all of this 3 years later.
Yeah. I mean, it's been, it's been 3 years. So when I initially signed those girls over into the guardianship, and I signed away my rights to my older girls, and they were adopted by the director and her husband. And initially, the guardian, she did do what she said she would do, which was she was going to give the girls right back to me and allow me to raise them. And so that's what we did. I relocated to the town that she lived in, which is a couple hours away from where I was living at the time. She rented me a home. She was a property manager of some homes in the area, and everything was all right. I mean, she always had more say-so and power and control over me than what I would have liked. But by this point, I was so grateful to be able to parent my daughters. I just did whatever. I didn't ask questions. There's no need to ask why, because if, obviously she's telling me whatever she's telling me for a reason, and no need to ask why. She was very controlling, and I just let her kind of have that. Also keep in mind, she collected the money while I was going to raise the girls. Fine. But when I look at it now, this was a business for her. She knew how much I needed her. That sounds like a pretty sweet deal to me. I get the money while you, from her perspective, and I raise the kids. But she did always she would never let me have them 100% of the time. It was always like, take them to her sister's house. And I had to kind of share them in a sense for the first 2 years. And then all of a sudden something changed
Mm-hmm.
right about the time they were 2 years old. And, I did not make a fuss about those drug tests after we signed our rights away and after the guardianship was granted, because I was just so, they appeased me by allowing me access to the girls, with the guardianship. So I was forced to just swallow it and suck it up and, sit on the fact that this has all been done to me wrongfully,
Right. Right.
wrongfully. But it's like you don't want to make anyone mad,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
so you just, are hushed for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And over the duration of those 2 years, I was able to thoroughly examine those results, really look at them, all the pieces of paper. And I'm talking the actual, just pieces of paper that was given to myself and the father that were used to take away my daughters, my newest daughters. Um, and I was able to pick it out with the naked eye, this isn't right, this isn't right, and this isn't right, and somebody needs to hear me,
Mm-hmm.
and by the time that 2 years had rolled around and she had decided, oh, something's changed and I don't want to let the girls come home anymore, then it was like, um,
Oh,
well, I had to immediately hire an attorney to terminate the guardianship and try to get him back. And by then, it was like she'd gotten a better offer. And to this very day, I'm working this visitation order. It is the most, it could be worse. But when you're expecting to get custody of your kids and you end up with, especially after a situation like what I endured, how they got taken, and you end up with a visitation order such as the one that I got, um, it's, it is upsetting.
mm-hmm.
And it's something like a 6 phase deal, broke down into 3 month increments, starting with FaceTime calls, supervised visitation. I did 3 months of supervised visitation that I paid $60 an hour, traveled from where I live to where the girls live in order to do the visitation. So we're talking a roughly hour and 45-minute drive, $60 an hour, court ordered for 3 hours every other weekend. So we're talking $180 every other weekend, plus fuel, plus any activity, because you have to be in the public. I pay for not only myself but the visit supervisor as well,
Mm-hmm.
any and the girls' as admission, whatever activity. I mean, you're talking
Yeah. Yeah.
$500,
Right. I remember on our last podcast, you were saying you wanted to take the kids to a movie, but you had to pay for that
Yeah,
supervisor to be in there.
yeah.
This is just ridiculous.
That was the last visit that I had. So I'm done with supervised visitation. Now it's unsupervised visitation. So I come again, I drive the hour and 45 minutes, and I meet the guardian. We do the exchange of the girls. So I get to take the girls somewhere for 4 hours. Um, and then I return them. And it'll go this way for 3 months. This is every other weekend. It's just enough time. I have found that renting a hotel room is really the best
Hmm.
way to go with that, because we can just, have a safe place to go. Doesn't matter what the weather is. We can kick back and all we want to do is just like be with each other,
Right.
like watch TV, be a little bit normal.
Right.
You know what I mean? I am the queen of supervised visitation in a public setting. Let me tell you.
Mm.
Oh, I've had my fair share. Oh, the I mean, just it's, I know it doesn't sound that bad, like, well, what's the big deal, So
Hmm.
what? Somebody, let me tell you, it'll put some long-term, I think PTSD, or you just get very resentful towards bounce houses and arcades and things like that. I think after you go through so many years and months and weekends of having to do that with your children, and there's no intimacy, there's no privacy, and
And parent bonding.
the respect is out the window.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You can't parent that way.
No.
Um, and the guardian is able to, at her discretion, she can say, I think you're under the influence. I need you to go take a hair test. And within 48 hours, I am to complete a hair test at my expense. Um, Keep in mind, I have never failed a hair test throughout the duration of this whole litigation. I have done every one as asked, on schedule. So I have mandatory hair tests every 90 days and then at the guardian's discretion. So um, I make sure to do the exchange like at a police station so that there's an officer that witnesses that exchange and she can't, start terminate a visit and say, I think you're under the influence or something and take away my visit, and just to put me through it. I mean, because trust me, stranger things have happened. I mean,
Oh,
the lengths
I agree.
that have been gone, yeah, that just to disrupt the court case. It's crazy. I mean, I can't make this stuff up, but
No.
um basically I also had a call with the former director recently.
Mm-hmm.
Um I don't really see how it could be you know hurtful legally for me to share that. I mean, I wouldn't mind sharing it, but I did have the opportunity to get her on a call recently, and I wanted to know what her point of view, what her outlook was, kind of on um, some of this recent findings and stuff. I know that she has got to have gotten wind that I have this evidence about these drug tests. And recently, the Guardian had reached out to me and said that my oldest daughters, now 8, they'll be 8 in May, they are wanting to know why are the little ones able to see mom, and they don't know anything about where I am or, it just doesn't make sense to them. And so, anyway, next thing you know, I was invited to a dance recital of the older girls, and I'm like, it just kind of came out of nowhere. And if you ask me, I believe the director had the guardian um reach out to me. That's not the kind of thing that someone just takes it upon themselves
Mm-hmm.
to bridge this gap, and invite me to a dance recital without their um not just consent but like support. You know what I mean? Like that's something that they would have had to have discussed. You know what I mean? It just seems very odd that the guardian would, but oh well, I just, I saw that they were upset, so I thought I'd reach out to you and ask you, what do you want me to tell these girls? And then the next thing you know, she's in, extending the invite. But needless to say, I did go to the dance recital and it was awesome. The girls are phenomenal dancers. We had a great time. They knew who I was right away.
Oh.
So I was actually able to spend the day, with all 4 of my girls in the same um, space, just for a short time, but it was really nice. Um, and then the former director, she offered, for me to be able to reach out and contact the girls via FaceTime like the following week. And I did that. And that was really, I mean, went well. I spoke with the girls for a while and they're like little mini me's. It's funny.
Mm-hmm.
They share some of the same interests and things that I know that I did and still do, as a child I enjoyed. And anyway, they're like little spitting images of me. But after that I thought, you know what, I need to contact this woman and just see where her head is.
Mm-hmm.
What is her motive? What does she want to see in the future, as far as a relationship with me and these girls, and see what she had to say about the drug test. And of course she got very defensive, very early, kind of, I'm not gonna say early on in the conversation because she let me kind of rattle for a while and didn't say a word
Mm-hmm.
until finally, she was just like, I haven't done anything wrong, and
Oh.
you need
Oh.
to watch, if there's things printed about me and news articles that aren't true, I will be suing and da 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 da. And, she referenced that there was a previous news article done, and there was, and
Right.
I'm like, what's the matter? You felt that those things weren't true? And she said, absolutely not. And I said, I disagree. I believe it was all factual. I mean,
Right.
every
And
bit of it.
and you're referring to the article written in April 25th, 2020 by the Columbia Daily Tribune by Jackie Raywald.
Correct. Yeah, she
Yeah.
was actually out of the Springfield News Leader, but it was in the Tribune and the Missouri. It was in like a lot of the local papers. So yes, that is the article. I think if you look up like Missouri Mom Unfair Battle or something like that, that you can find that article. But um, yes, and she even mentioned the reporter that I've been working with recently
Mm-hmm.
over like the last year or so. We've been talking and kind of we've been in communication about doing another article, and hopefully that is going to drop very soon.
Mm-hmm.
She's had a lot going on, but she is committed to writing about it. She wants to help me to get it out there, and so we can look forward to that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
being published here very soon. But I thought it was interesting that the director knew who that reporter was before I ever said anything. She's, mentioned her name. So and so she can write whatever she wants about me. This isn't my first go round with her, but I'm no longer a public official. I'm not a public official anymore. And there are different repercussions for just regular citizens. You can't just write about a regular citizen like you can a public official. Anyway, and I'm like, you weren't just you definitely were a public official when you did this, when this
Mm-hmm.
happened. At one point she also referenced, do you think I haven't spoken with attorneys? I thought, why? And she made this statement, well, because of what happened, well, or allegedly happened. I thought, you said
But it
it.
happened.
Yeah. So I know that I will never stop fighting, and for justice, exposing this. It has taken my life from me, from my children. It has disrupted our whole lives in ways that you can never imagine. And I think as long as, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not the one that lied. These people
Right.
have committed a crime, and my story doesn't have to change up, doesn't have to, I don't have to bend in corners and tell lies to prove what's happened. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I am the victim in this. These people have wrongfully stolen my daughters, and as long as that's the case, I mean, in my eyes, I will always have a leg to stand on. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there will always be a a reason to keep fighting.
Right. I mean, because we're talking about two sets of twins. And to,
Yeah.
and to put you through that the average person doesn't go through that.
No, it's not normal. It's
No.
very much not normal. Um, it impacts every sense, every bit of your life.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's not normal. People don't know what to say or how to respond. I mean, you just go walk around like, kind of a closed book, or else you're just a complete open book and you overshare.
Right.
People are just scared away. But it's a nightmare, and I'm not ashamed. I'm not gonna sit and be, walk with my head down or feel like I've done something wrong, because no, they are the ones that have committed the wrong. They are the ones. I mean, if you ask, they should be in jail.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, not to mention the kids returned to me. I mean, um, and finally, I have come across an attorney out of the St. Louis area here in Missouri that is willing to take this case.
Oh, thank
Um,
God.
but it's another 5 grand, but that I don't have right now. But you know what? That is the best news that I've gotten
Right.
in a very long time. But I haven't held that evidence for that long. So up until then, it was just kind of like my word. I'm running around with these paper results in my hand, trying to make someone listen to me and believe me. But now that things are a little bit more solid, I'm really, really hoping, um, you know, that we'll get moving on this, and something will happen. I mean, At least it's always a reason to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Sometimes it's when we go through things like this, I think we tend to get caught up in the uproar of just the fight. It's like as long as you're doing something, you're doing something.
Right,
If you do nothing, you're doing nothing. And that is almost, I mean, it's torture.
right. And
Torture.
these girls, these two sets of twins, they are calling you mom, correct?
Yes. Oh, I know the point that I was going to make earlier. They do call me mom, but they have someone else that they call mom also. A woman by the name of Keisha that I don't know anything about her, who she is, where she came from. All I know. So basically, the guardian is not raising these girls. I
Mm.
mean, if you ask me, she's selling my daughters.
Oh,
Whoever this Keisha person is not anyone that has ever been that the courts have ever been made aware of. The girls refer to her as mommy, our other mommy. When she gets married, we're gonna have another daddy. And when asked about it, the guardian just completely did not acknowledge it, did not entertain it, would not speak a word of it. And it's like I mentioned this on trial under oath, like what my daughters are referring to someone else by the name of Keisha as mommy. I'm not allowed to correct them if
ah,
they call me by first name, because every now and then they'll call me by first name. And you can tell someone has instructed them to do so.
mhm, mhm.
Yesterday, they told me that one of my daughters said, I want to, I want to copy you, mommy. I want to copy you, but not really. But I want to. Well, Mima said, "Not, I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't copy you." She was trying. Mima said, "Don't be like your mom. Don't
Uh-huh.
be like your mom." You know. So it was like she wanted to say, like, "I want to be like you, mom," but I know I'm not supposed to say that. Then I want to be like you.
Oh, what a
How
thing to
hurtful!
that
Terrible.
is child psychological
They
abuse.
also tell them, and
Oh,
my daughters tell me this, that Mima said, because that's what they refer to the guardian as Mima.
yeah.
Mima said that um, that you're not our real mom. That just something about that I'm their adopted mom or something bizarre like that.
Oh
They could be
no.
getting it confused. They're just 4 years old, but it's very clear that they are being told all sorts of things.
And
And it's in the court order. That we're not supposed to speak ill of either one. In the kids' presence, and
they're
um,
doing it. They're
of
doing it.
course, of
And that
course.
is child psychological abuse.
But does
Come
anyone
on.
care? People don't
Uh,
care. They don't care. Even when there was a GAL on the case, they don't care. They're not acting in the best interest of those kids. They are
they never
not.
do.
Just period. I mean, there's no way, and coming from someone who did everything that was asked. I passed every hair test. I did the reunification therapy. I did the home study. Everything passed everything with flying colors. The supervised visitation, I paid for every one. Never missed anything. Was never late. I did fun act. I mean, I did it all, and plus the $40,000 for the lawyer, and I
Mm.
still did not get my kids back. And held the evidence to show the judge, look, judge, look, these girls were never even supposed to be in this guardianship. And
Mhm.
still, like, how could he have not submitted that or let the judge know that? So at this point, I have no attorney. He hasn't officially withdrawn. So I am in the process of communicating to the courts, and I've been saying this for quite some time. I just need to do it, get it all revised and prepared and send it to the judge and tell her, hey, I'm no longer represented. I
Mhm.
need you to know that I am in compliance with your visitation order. Um,
Mhm.
and, I'm no longer represented by this attorney. And these are the reasons why. Probably not get too far in depth on those reasons, because the truth of the matter is, guess what? She doesn't care.
Right. Right.
Save it for the bar,
Well,
if
even
they
they
care.
don't care because,
Yeah.
they all
Yeah. And,
just
people say, like, you need to tell, so have you reported? Have you, please?
yeah,
It's like,
been there, done that.
been there, done it. I've written the OIG. I did get a
Mhm.
response. Um, and they just redacted everything out of, I did a FOIA request, my OIG, it's never ending. But, you know, I don't want to discourage folks. Always, fight, document everything, record everything. And don't ever lose hope. I will never lose hope. I have learned to evolve from this broken, mother that her infants were stripped of her, not once, twice, but, time over and time over again. And I've gone through every, phase of psychological, you know, every stage I'm sure there is to be had, grieving and blaming and guilt and all that. And I'm by no means am I like mentally just,
we all go through that. I mean,
yeah, but I can tell you what, they have made a beast out of me. Like there is not too much that can ruffle my feathers, so to speak, these days, I mean,
well, it also seems like the guardian is double dipping. If she's letting someone else, this Keisha, raise these kids,
that's like selling the children. I mean,
yeah,
it's
it is.
very, very
It's
disturbing.
trafficking, right?
It is.
Because as you know about these Title IV incentives, B, D, and E, they're making a lot of money off of this by taking
Yeah.
more kids.
She's
And the
driving a
first time,
new Lexus SUV.
oh, that's
She's
what's
had
paying
like
for it. Yeah, these kids
she's
are.
had like some sort of cosmetic weight loss surgery.
Oh,
She takes several international vacations a year.
I
She
wish I
lives in a
could.
home, has started a business. I mean, she flies her grandkid like once a month from out of state. Her, lives lives way beyond what we have ever been able to live.
Right,
I mean, it's pretty disgusting.
right. Well, these incentives are paying for all of that, and the taxpayer needs to know.
Yeah. Meanwhile, she does things like when I had issues with my little girl when she was just 2, and I expressed it to the guardian and her sister, who was a very, she was a pretty big, she helped with the girls a lot. Her sister did. So I reach out to them and said, I'm seeing these tantrums from this one, and she's just really, it's kind of concerning. She's getting pretty upset and throwing things, and just at 2 years old, they sent me home with a yardstick. I think I shared that on the last podcast. That was their solution, was to whoop those girls with a yardstick.
Oh,
I'm like, no, negative. I'm not gonna hit my 2-year-old with a yardstick. I'm sorry. And
no.
anybody, again, that was brought to the judge's attention too. She didn't bat an eye at it. She treated that woman like she was a saint. Like, you have gone above and beyond to,
Oh,
what
that's
most
disgusting. Who
people would. And I was just like,
did we mention that judge in that our last podcast? I cannot remember.
did I mention her?
Yeah,
I don't
may
know that
have.
I did. It was every time someone asks me, it's like I draw a blank. She was, oh my gosh, it's gonna happen again.
It's from stress and trauma. I'm
You
sorry.
think? Oh my gosh, I do it
Yeah,
every time. Her name, I don't know why I blank on her name.
it's probably not worth
Um,
remembering.
yeah, I know. And I'm like, I don't want to say that too loud
Yeah,
because I'm trying to get her, what? For
right.
what? What? It doesn't even matter. At this point, it doesn't even say at the end of that visitation order that I'm going to get my daughters back.
Hmm.
It basically makes it so tedious and so monitored and so just, you know, if you're 20 minutes behind, visit is revoked and da da da, you need to go do this and do that. And, the cost, I mean, we're talking one night overnighters. When I finally get to the point where I'll be able to bring those girls home to their house, to my home, where they have had a mock room set up
Mm.
with brand new beds and toys and clothes and everything. I mean, that room has cycled through every bit. I mean, first it was the little one or the older twins' room, and then the birth of the new babies, and then they were taking it. I mean, it's just been a nightmare, But
Hmm.
yeah, it's been set up now, waiting for these girls, collecting dust. When they finally make it home, it'll be like one night, 2-hour drive. We're talking little kid, little, they're just 4. driving all the way up here, get them, keep them one night, turn around, take them back. If you're late, oh, guess what? We're going to revoke it. You go back to phase 2, FaceTime.
Oh,
If I take him out of the county without clear consent, I go all the way back to phase 2, and I'm never to exceed past phase 2, which is FaceTime calls. That means basically if I take them out of the county, they are terminating my parental rights.
mm,
That's what that says, pretty much. If I'm never to exceed past phase 2, that means I never will see my girls again past a FaceTime call. You tell me, do those people want to see me with those girls? No matter what I do. You know
right.
what I'm saying? When you put something like, not that I would take them out of the county knowing that I wasn't supposed to, but my God,
Yeah.
that's a strong punishment, a very harsh punishment. Like, I don't know. I just,
It's like, yeah, and then on the flip side, when my ex took the oldest out of the state,
uh-huh.
or just like it was like for some type of concert or something. But I was the last to know. I didn't know that. And I bring it up to my attorney. I said, shouldn't he have told me that he was taking her out of the state? Oh, no, he doesn't have to. Oh, but if it was me, I would, God knows what they would do to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and not to mention like the father, I just want to touch on this real quick. Um, the father, I did at one point, I had an order of protection against the girls' father. And that doesn't look good, but it that's what it was. When we separated, he didn't take it well, and he acted out of line, and I did what I needed to do, put the order of protection against him, and I left it in effect until it recently expired.
Mm,
But with that being said, that's been 2 years. A lot has changed in the last 2 years.
mhm,
We have had the chance to kind of, obviously we're trauma bonded, the father
mhm,
and myself.
mhm,
Excuse me, I had to take a drink. But people go through stuff. Families go through things. They go through counseling, they work things out. They need, moms and dads, when you have, children together, it's kind of like that person is someone that I'm supposed to be able to rely on for
mhm,
support, not only financially, but, emotional support as well when it
mhm.
comes to the children and going through all of this stuff. And, I'm proud to say and glad to say that we have been able to kind of work through some of that stuff. Um, I believe that he's learned his lesson. He ended up having some serious consequences behind his behavior. But as it stands now, in that visitation order, he is not to be included in any way, shape, or form with visitation. He has not seen those girls in almost 2 years.
Mhm.
That's their dad. You know what I'm saying? He never, never has hurt them or would hurt them. Um,
And they don't care.
no, they don't care. And if the dad is seen, if I see him at all, like during a visit, I am supposed to immediately call the police. If I don't, there's big consequences for me. I mean, it's like I go back to phase 1 and start this thing all over again. It may be like never get the kids back type of thing. But I'm pretty sure it's just that I go back to phase 1 and start all over again. But just to think that those people have those kinds of, that kind of power to put those kinds of restraints and uh
Mhm.
you know limits on our family, that we just can't be a family, period. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying? That he
that's
cannot
what,
be a
and
part of
that's
it.
what
And
these agencies are doing, and
yeah,
these family court judges, not all of them, because there are a couple good ones, but they're
yes,
destroying the fabric of the family.
right, exactly. So here he is, supplying my vehicle, to do these visits, and a lot of the money that is being put out now for visits, I'm relying on him to help with. And meanwhile, he just has to pretend like he just doesn't exist and be on the sideline. You know what I mean? It's just,
That's
it's
sad.
crazy. And I would say, well, hire a lawyer.
Mm.
Hire a lawyer and intervene into this, and try to become a part. No, no. I mean, from my experience, don't even, we'll just ride this out, and this portion of the girl's life, you just won't be a part of, and that's unfortunate because these girls have two loving parents that
Hmm.
would never hurt them in any way. I mean, we would go to the earth's end to protect these girls. Always have, always will. And they're being tossed around amongst people that are sickos.
Sickos, and they're
Power trip.
psychologically abusing these kids and confusing
Absolutely.
them. And this is so wrong to do to a child.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, but this is what they do.
They say things like, "Mommy, we have dreams about you. I have
Oh,
I have you. You're in my dreams." And it's sickening.
hmm.
They're in my dreams.
And they need to be with their mother because you've been put through enough.
They will. They will. You mark my words, one day I will never stop fighting. Like I said, as long as my truth is my truth and I have nothing to be ashamed of. My story is an open book. I'm not here to lie about anything. I am not the one that, is to blame here. I did not commit a crime. You know,
Mhm.
I'm the victim, period, point blank. And as long as that stays the truth, and I don't see how in the world it could not be. You know what I'm saying? You can't
Right.
go back and change what's already happened, period. Um, I'll never stop fighting. And there will come a day. And I will say this, one day those girls are going to be grown. And I told you, I think I said this last time, I have this vision of us sitting down, and they're about college age or their early 20s or so, and us sitting down and just talking, and getting all of this out, and actually finally having, and I hope it doesn't take that long, to have them all in one
Hmm.
location. But it's one day we will
Hmm.
have our time, to actually be a family and get, the truth out. And I hate that it's going to hurt them, but it's inevitable. They'll be back.
Right. Well, they'll find out anyway. So I'm glad you updated us.
Yes, thank you for letting me. I hope I wasn't,
Definitely.
it was a rough start there, but
Well, we got it. We got it. And how can people reach you if they have any questions?
always, I know you mentioned that they can go through you, so that's great. Or I do have an email as well. It's Lake Jessie 88 at Gmail. So that's LakeJessie 88 at gmail.com.
I'll put that in the podcast notes, but don't jump off, okay?
I won't. Thank you.
Um, Slam the Gavel's a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courts. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe, Apple, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms I don't know about. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. And I totally thank you, Jessie Lake. I'm so sorry they're putting you through this, and thank you for speaking out.
Thank you.